Lesson 13, we're going to discuss Atma Vidya, or subtle anatomy, in a compressed way. You all received this booklet as a PDF file at the beginning of the course. So that is where we're looking at. Mine is already turned yellow, it's so old, it's falling apart. But it still functions. It's gold. Alright, what is this about? It's about energy. Everything is energy. I've told you this from the very beginning and probably already in the workshop. Why is that important? That is because energy in the universe, and therefore on Earth and in the human being, has a tendency to condense. It condenses, and it starts with energy condensing to gas, from gas condensing further into liquid, and from liquid further condensing into solid matter. The physical body, the part that we see when we look in the mirror, is the end product of this transformation of energy, condensing towards solid matter. The tragedy is that human beings think that that is life. The tragedy is that human beings think that that is all there is to us as human beings. The wonderful message here from ancient yogis is that there is so much more beyond the physical body. Yoga is designed to take control of energy, which includes reversing the condensation of energy towards physical matter that eventually resulted in our physical body, made of flesh and bones. Why that is important will become clear from what I'm going to draw for you on the whiteboard. This is a very old insight that Ajita has tried to put in what he calls a yin-yang model. So it is a huge egg, in fact, that ends up looking like a yin-yang model, but then out of shape. That is because it will continue. This is pure energy. This will become the model of a human being, but far beyond the physical body. This is pure energy. There is no manifestation of anything at all yet. No gas, no liquid, no solid matter. This is called Purusha. Purusha is the soul. Purusha is what connects us with the consciousness of the universe, the intelligence of the universe. You know, there are people, there are philosophers, there are spiritual people who say we are all part of God. All of us carry a little bit of God within us. Here that will become clear. Why? Because we are all children of the universe. We are all a product of that energy that constitutes the entirety of the universe. The Purusha is the soul. Condensation occurs, and within Purusha, the more denser body within Purusha. Wait, I'm going the wrong direction. Simply like that. The body within Purusha is called Avyakta. Avyakta translates as unmanifested self. Unmanifested self. Now, I asked Ajita, please explain what is unmanifested self. You know what Ajita said? He said, I asked my mentors, what is avyakta, what is unmanifested self? And it is so difficult to explain, it's better not to waste too much energy on it. But it will become clear with the next egg. Within avyakta, you find Atman. Now, Atman is, of course, the manifested self. The self with a capital S, manifesting. Atman is your true characteristics. So Atman is your soul consciousness, your heart's content. So who you really are beyond your conditioning, beyond your thought of thinking, I am Korean, I'm Dutch, I'm Japanese, I'm Indian. This is the universal self that has nothing to do with how you were educated, your diplomas. It has nothing to do with your possessions or your culture. It is the universal self, which for most people is unreachable. Most people are so stuck in the world of matter, which is far below here, will become clear when we finish the model, that they have no way of having any insight, consciousness, connection with the world up there, which is in fact within themselves, of course. But that is why we talk so often about soul consciousness, about discovering the real self. That's here, located in Atman. The real self. There is an anecdote about Atman. In the past, yogis would engage in debate, and the smartest debater is the winner of the battle. So they didn't battle with swords or guns, they battled in debate, trying to come up with smart insights, and trying to defeat another person with a smart insight, with an insight that goes even beyond that. Now, the story goes, it's an anecdote, that one day the Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, was visited by pandits. The pandits are the academics of the past, people studying language, studying the scriptures. And so they challenged him and they said, Buddha, everybody says you are such a holy man, such a wise man, so explain Atman to us. And he said, Anatta. Anatta, anatta, which means no Atman. They interpreted that as Buddha denying the existence of Atman. What Buddha meant is that when you talk about Atman, you will never reach it. Sit down and meditate. Atman will come to you in silence. So Atman is a feeling. It's not a theory or a philosophy. It's a feeling that every meditating person develops in the silence of your meditations. Because that is where you are super sensitive and where you start discovering the contents of your heart, or what we also call soul consciousness developing. That is Atman. Every person, even when if you do not formally practice meditation, there are people who focus on a hobby and are very concentrated on that on a daily basis because they're really passionate about something. They withdraw themselves into their hobby room and they focus on their hobby. That's very meditative, leading also to these kind of insights. It can be fishing at the lakeside, where you're just staring at the floater for hours at a time. So you can do it in a formal way, which is of course the most powerful and the most efficient, but there are many ways that people can actually get a sense of soul consciousness. And many people do. Atman. Within Atman, we have, upon further condensation of the energy, within Atman we have Karana Sharira. Sharira means body. Karana is the spiritual body. So here we enter familiar territory because this is what we know as the crown chakra. The crown chakra is only the fourth level that actually started with pure spirit on the highest level, Purusha. So here the human being starts to manifest, Karana Sharira. But still, this is a level where most people have no energy to fuel consciousness here. So most people do not even reach this level of themselves, of their own existence. Karana Sharira is the crown chakra. Within Karana Sharira, there is of course Ajna Chakra, but that body, the mental body, is called Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is Ajna Chakra. It contains the intellect, the ability to think, ability to rationalize, but very importantly, if you develop the will located in Ajna Chakra, it allows thought control, which is one of the important goals of your yoga practice. Within Sukshma Sharira, we have Sthula Sharira, which is of course the physical body, the next product of this condensation process. And you already know within the physical body there are 5 bodies: Vishuddhi Chakra, Anahata Chakra, Manipura Chakra, Swadhisthana Chakra, and Muladhara Chakra. So this model continues. Vishuddhi Chakra. No, Vishuddhi Chakra is contained from here. Anahata Chakra, Manipura, Swadhisthana, and Muladhara. If you contemplate this model, you cannot but come to the conclusion that it is endless, is infinite. You start asking yourself, how far does it go? Not only in the microcosmos, but also in the macrocosmos. This is a cosmos within a cosmos. Within the universe, there are many of these cosmoses. So, very intriguing then, if you start contemplating this, is how far does it go? Because if this is a universe within a universe, how about our entire universe, which is full of galaxies, and each of those galaxies is full of millions and sometimes billions of stars. And there are billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars. Within our whole universe. But couldn't our whole universe not just be a small universe within another big universe? We don't know yet. We have not developed the tools yet, the technology yet, to be able to see beyond our universe. But if you look at this model, it becomes very plausible. In fact, just like within your body you have billions of cells, each being a universe on their own, creating a big universe, we then as a universe are within our universe, which could be a part of a billions of other universes making another bigger universe beyond that. Not only that, when you go down to the bottom of the model, you then ask yourself, how many universes are there in the microcosmos, on micro level? So basically, it's mind-boggling. It's empty. It's endless. We don't know the answer to that yet, but it's plausible that there is a universe beyond our universe, of which our universe is just a small part. It's also possible that there are within us. There are universes based on the same model, but invisible. Each cell, basically, is an organism in itself, each atom in itself. And millions or billions of these atoms have created our universe, our body. Another issue to contemplate, to consider, is the human being as we see in the mirror basically starts here. So this is the bottom of your body. You have the throat chakra here. But when we look in the mirror, we see just one entity, we see one thing. We do not even consider that there are already within what we see, the physical part, there are actually 5 different levels of consciousness. You have studied the chakras, so you know that each chakra has its own function. There's fear, there's desire, there's ambition and ego, there's love, care, empathy, there's expression. These constitute different levels of consciousness. And it doesn't stop there. You then have Ajna Chakra and you have higher consciousness. The tragedy of this process of condensation of energy is that people are all focused downwards. We are centered downwards. Our consciousness, therefore, is lower consciousness, mainly dominated by lower emotions and desires, which lead to chaos, which lead to conflict, which lead to lack of organization and order. That is why governments put so much effort on education. They want you to be centered in Ajna Chakra so that they can control the population and so that the population starts doing constructive things that contribute to the well-being of the society as a whole. That is basically the government's, every government's main objective. We want to go beyond that because the government doesn't care about your true self, your true characteristics or your soul consciousness. All they want you to be is brave citizens that do not do any crazy things, that walk in line with the lines that have been set by the government, dutifully perform your tasks, pay your taxes and bills, and be a good citizen that contributes to society. Education, therefore, is really a good thing. But the only issue that we have with this is that it actually brings people farther away from their true self. Because education is a conditioning with foreign content. Everything that you learn is not related to soul consciousness. It does cultivate you, it does intellectually build you, develop you, and that development you can use in yoga to go a step higher. In the ancient past, yoga was the education system of society without the pollution. Because the education system of the past was focused on cultivating intellect without having to memorize all kinds of data, theories that are not related to self. So you practice yoga, you meditate, energy starts to rise, Ajna chakra is cultivated, intellect, and that allows you then to go to the crown chakra, where you develop your deep insights, where the real education is basically taking place. So real education, in contrast with our modern approach to education, is actually not a mental engagement, it's a causal engagement. An engagement in the causal body, in the crown chakra. So if you have a sincere question, you plant that question, you put the question out there, you close your eyes, and your crown chakra will give you the wisdom and the insight to answer the question. So that goes beyond learning theories from a book. But the thing is, in the ancient past, to cultivate human beings that are basically living like animals would take many, 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 many years. The government has done most of the work for us already. Our formal education has given us a high platform. All we have to do is introduce yoga, and the jump from Ajna chakra to the crown chakra is rather easy to make, as compared to how ancient people without the benefit of formal education had to go through a very lengthy process to first and foremost develop Ajna chakra. So this part of your being is in fact in most people non-existent, because there is no energy rising up to fuel consciousness on this level, any activity at all on this level. But any yoga practitioner, from the very beginning that you start practicing yoga, energy starts rising up, and it explains why you develop increasing sensitivity and consciousness. Not after many years, but it starts already from the beginning. And it is when energy is at those higher levels of consciousness also that you feel like being home. It feels like coming home. You know the expression, home is where the heart is? So in the Netherlands, people say home is where the heart is, and they make their house very cozy, with nice interior and nice atmosphere, lamps and what have you, which of course is very nice. But if your heart is not in the right place, this cozy home will still not make you feel home. The opposite is also true. If you are connected with your heart's content, if you have developed soul consciousness, even if you were on the moon, you would feel home. Why? Because home is not where the heart is, home is in the heart. That is the true home. When you are functioning on this level of consciousness, you can handle any challenge. You can handle any situation. When you're miserable, when things go off the rails, when a relationship comes to an end, when you lose your job, of course it affects you, but you can handle it. You can handle it like no one else can handle it. Because you function on that higher level of consciousness, you do not see the misery, you see opportunity. You see that everything has a reason and a purpose. That what on first sight looks like failure or misery is actually a direction from the universe to make you go beyond that. That is what happens when you function on a higher level of consciousness. That is the magic of yoga. There are other ways to reach it, but yoga, if followed according to the way that it is presented, which is unfortunately not the case in most studios, but if you follow the framework systematically, step by step, it is a very powerful tool that from the very beginning that you engage in it, leads to energy rising up and fueling those higher levels of consciousness. And your life as a result will totally change. Gradually, for sure, doesn't change from today to tomorrow, overnight. It is a gradual change, but at the very beginning, you already feel the potential because it starts with you feeling different. It starts with you experiencing something you've never felt before. And this connection occurs and you start to understand what it really means that home is where the heart is. I've been in Korea for many years, and people have sometimes asked me, why on earth Korea? Out of all places, why Korea? Because people know I've been here a long time, I planted my roots here, I even changed my nationality. Out of all places, why Korea? I've heard that question several times. That is because home is where the heart is. I can go back to the Netherlands. I have gone back to the Netherlands several times, of course. My family is there. But every time I go there, I just can't wait for the flight back to Korea. Because this is where I feel connected. This is where I feel that I am thriving. Ideally, if you ask me where would you like to live, I would say I probably not really want to go back to the Netherlands. There's too much karma there. And there's a reason why I left it. But I really feel attracted to Australia or New Zealand, Canada, countries with lots of space, beautiful nature, maybe Southern Europe, Portugal. But you know, I know that if I go now, if I go there, I will just be with my hands in my hair. Like, okay, nice country, nice climate, nice food, but what the hell am I doing here? What am I going to do here? Still, my life is here. Home is where the heart is. If my karma, if my destiny would lead me to step into a space rocket, fly to the moon and settle on the moon, there must be a reason for that. I will thrive and be happy on the moon. That's of course a ridiculous statement. But I'm trying to make clear that if you live following your heart, wherever your heart brings you, whether that is into the Amazon, deep into the jungle, or the highest mountain, or in one of the biggest conglomerate cities of the world, metropolitan cities of the world, you will feel at home. You will thrive, and it feels like a spiritual journey. When you follow your heart, automatically it feels like a spiritual. That in itself is yoga. And practicing yoga, leading to energy rising up, awakening higher levels of consciousness, automatically leads to a person transforming towards living following the heart. It's a slow process, it's a slow transformation, but you feel from the very beginning already that spark. And it is the reason why you fall in love with yoga. It is the reason why, even if you're not a very diligent practitioner who practices every day, for the years to come, you will come back to it time and time again, just because of that potential that you have felt there. In the meantime, of course, you're busy with work, busy with family. I always say you are with one foot in your past and with one foot in your future. But you will more and more draw that foot from the past forward and pull it towards that foot that is standing in the future. It can also happen sometimes. This is what happened when I, for example, met Ajita for this famous or infamous conversation that I had with him. I ended up in a split. I ended up in an impossible split. I knew where I wanted to be, but I was stuck in where I came from. And at that time I couldn't rationalize it, so I couldn't control it. And Ajita's simple formula really helped me to pull that foot out of the past and move it towards the future. Questions about all this? More and more in life, try to follow what feels good. And this automatically includes more and more in life, investigate what does not feel good. Investigate and then try to change it, try to transform it. Things that feel good draw you more closer to the heart. Things that don't feel good are things that you ended up in because of your conditioning, because your education pointed you into that direction, because your culture makes you think that that is where you're supposed to be, because your upbringing, your parents, your teachers have conditioned you to feel or think in that way. But becoming more and more a more conscious individual, you start to become conscious of the dissonance that you feel in certain activities, in certain identifications. It doesn't feel right anymore, it doesn't feel good anymore. When that is the case, it is in fact a subtle indication of your heart saying, this is not for you, this is not meant for you. It doesn't mean that you should immediately cancel it or cut it out, because that is violence. But it means that you have to develop consciousness. Ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? And how did I get here? How did I end up here? Kind of naturally having become stuck in there, and now finding myself in a situation where I'm asking myself, do I really want to be here? Do I really want to do this? If the answer is no, the next question should be then, what would I like to do instead? And if you can answer that question, it often requires preparation. You need to prepare for the next step before you leave the old one behind. If you're in a job today that, because you are increasing consciousness and sensitivity, you come to the conclusion, actually, if I look deep inside my heart, I really hate this. If you're in a job that you really don't like, but you've been doing for so many years and it has paid your bills, your mortgage, your vacations and everything, you cannot say, because you learned from your yoga teacher that you have to pay attention to things that you don't like, that you just quit your job tomorrow. If you do that, you end up in disaster. You'll be kicked out of your house, kicked out of the country if you're a foreigner, because the immigration office doesn't allow you to stay here without a job, doesn't give you a visa without a job, you will be deported. So you invite all kinds of disasters upon yourself if you function in such a radical way. Instead, you have to ask yourself, what do I want? Okay, this and that I have to do. And then you prepare. And it can sometimes take years. It took me also many, many years. Every time I have to or want to transform towards the next stage, it takes many years. But I always get there. Because I have this faith in my heart, simply because there is energy there on that level. I always get there. That is how you fulfill your deepest wishes. Patience, courage, is not something that you can learn. Qualities of the crown chakra. You practice yoga, you automatically develop these wonderful qualities of courage, patience, and also vision that helps you to see the process that you are in, so that you also understand not only where you want to go, but how to actually eventually get there. And you realize that it is something that cannot be achieved overnight, because there are so many intermediate steps involved that you just cannot skip. And very importantly in this whole process is that every time you're confronted with adversity, with conflict, with failure, that you realize that that is not a bad thing, but it is part of your preparation to be able to go to the next level. To go to the next level, you have to learn wise lessons in life that you learn through your misery and your failures. So next time when confronted with misery, do not drown in your misery. Instead, try to see what it is trying to teach you. Because it will make you stronger, it will make you more insightful, wiser, and eventually it will create a stepping stone for your big move. Everything is a process. And you just have to respect that process. Otherwise, you create more misery. Be diligent, but also be patient. And do not give up. Have the courage to face the uncertain. Because that is the path that you are on, basically. Okay?
Ron?
Yeah,
I'm wondering the example who reached the Atma level and beyond in reality.
You wonder about what?
The person who reached the Atma level or beyond in reality, in history.
I don't understand the question.
So you said the Atma level is a manifested self. So I'm wondering who is the example to reach the Atma level or more reach the high level energy in reality?
Okay, now we are entering into some territory that is look, Buddha said anatta for a reason. You know, I've had people asking me, "Are you enlightened?" And I said, "I don't know." Then they look at me incredulously, like, "Huh? You're a yogi? I'm asking you, are you enlightened?" And you say you don't know. They expect me to say yes. The moment that I say yes, I'm enlightened, I am showing that I am not. Can you understand that? The moment that I say, I have reached Atma, it's the proof that I have not. I once had a guy on the phone. It was actually very tragic. He was clearly on the spiritual path, very sensitive, unstable, almost crying on the phone, a Korean guy. And what he explained to me is he went to so many places, and in his words, he just met so many frauds, so many fake spiritual people who say, I'm enlightened, come to me, pay your membership fee, and I will make you happy. And he was sick and tired he was on an honest search for real spiritual practice, not necessarily yoga. So he had read something about me or heard something about me, and he called me. And he asked me also, Kaja-san, are you awakened? And I said, I can't say that. I can't tell you that. Then he was disappointed in that answer too. Unfortunately, because he did not understand that I didn't want to lower myself to that level of all those people that promised him soap bubbles, that gave him empty promises about spirituality while actually being frauds. I would have been the same as those people that he was actually disappointed in. If I would have said, yes, of course I'm awakened one. I don't know. I have a pretty good idea where I stand, but that's not up to me to judge. You tell me. What do you think? I don't even want you to tell me, but you are the one that judges. What do you feel? Do you feel I'm making sense? Do you feel I'm giving you insights that are valuable? You know, Atman, enlightenment, awakened, it's all just a word. It's all just a concept. It's about how we function. It's about our sincerity, about our intention. Maybe you have a feeling that I might have reached the level of Atman. Actually, I really don't care. It's not important. And that is what Buddha meant by saying, anatta, anatta, anatta. Stop thinking about Buddha. Just do the work. Just focus on your practice. Throw away your books and buy a yoga mat. Didn't exist at that time, yoga mats. It's an invention of the modern time. But what he really means is do not even think about it. It's so superficial. Just practice and enjoy and spread the wisdom, and all the rest is window dressing, is ego. Forget about Atman. Understand what it means. And the truth is, as a person who practices yoga, you may have had moments that you touched Atman, that you reached, but it's not important. Energy is fickle. It is all over the place. But in unconditioned people, it's all over the place on a lower level. In conditioned people, it's all over the place on a much broader spectrum. But spiritual people, even if they meditate every day, they still have energy on the lower levels too. This is a mistake people make sometimes, that they think, oh, if you meditate a lot and your energy is in the crown chakra, then you have no problem anymore with desire, with fear, with doubt, with ego, with ambition. No, that's not true. That continues to exist. And honestly, very often in New Age circles, in spiritual circles, you see people with the biggest problems actually there, because they are not really practicing frequently. So they have developed a little bit with energy to higher levels of consciousness, but then because they are not disciplined to practice regularly, the energy drops down and their lower emotions and desires take over. That is why there is so much abuse in spiritual circles. It shouldn't be there. It's a total anomaly. It's a total contradiction with people who practice spirituality could not engage in abuse. Because it hurts yourself. Because you see the law of karma at work. If you abuse, the law of karma will get back to you. You know how everything works. And if you are a spiritual person and you are like a leader or a teacher, each and every one of your well-being is my responsibility. If I abuse my authority to fulfill my lower emotions and desires through my students, then I'm not caring about your well-being anymore. For a real spiritual person, that is impossible. That's just totally out of the question. And yet it happens so often. Even in established religious circles like the Catholic Church, which in the past 30 years have shown so many scandals of sexual abuse in all continents, in all countries around the world. And it's not only happening it's happening everywhere. Yoga is also full of scandals of abuse. So, anatta, focus on practice only. And you do it for yourself, really, because it feels good. You want to do it again tomorrow. If you reach a point of development where you want to spread the word, it will happen naturally. Becoming a teacher happens naturally. For the rest, just focus on your practice, and your development will basically guide you towards where you are supposed to be. That can be anything. It can be another country. It can be another job. If you practice, your feeling will guide you. The problem with human beings being conditioned by 2 decades of formal education is that we try to mentalize everything. We want to think everything. And we get lost there. We really get lost there. Following your heart means following your feeling. And if you say this to a university professor maybe, or academics, they would totally disagree with that. They would disagree with our idea of following the heart, because they think it's frivolous. They are afraid that it will lead to nothing. But that is very short-sighted. That is very short-term thinking. Really spiritual people who follow their heart, in the moment you might think they're just doing nothing constructive or useful. People who are spiritual are very good at staring at the ceiling or sitting in front of the window and just looking at the birds flying by. And normal, theoretically schooled people, they think, what the hell are they doing? Go do something useful. Here is a broom, or wash the dishes, or get a job. But you are in a process where you are building yourself, basically. Connect. When you are staring at the ceiling or watching the birds fly by, you are connecting the dots internally. You are making logic out of everything. And in the long term, that leads to it leads to heaven. It leads to fulfilling your destiny. But it's a process of decades. And it's a process in which you sometimes run, sometimes you stand still and you do nothing. And don't let other people kick you under the butt and force you to move, because then you lose connection. I'm pretty sure that all of you are relatively spiritually well developed already. And this is a characteristic that you will recognize. You need lots of I time. You need lots of me time. You need lots of time that you just want to be alone, doing whatever you feel like doing, even if that means doing nothing. And you become restless or even stressed when your days are filled with constant activity and you have no me time. Because you slowly but certainly start losing your connection. You feel like you're crashing. So you must have sufficient room, time to not be busy. So you have a job, that's fine. But beside that job, you must have plenty of time to just be yourself. And if possible, even just to do nothing. You will find it increasingly difficult to maintain a full-time job. Yeah, I see so many of you nodding. So you recognize what I'm saying here. That is not because you're lazy. People will want to make you believe you're lazy. It's not because you're lazy. It's because you cannot engage so many hours of the day without losing your connection. It's part of being on a spiritual path. You must unbusy yourself. You must unclog your busy schedule. Because it hurts to be too busy. In fact, it will lead to a burnout. It will, eventually, in the long term. But we live in a very difficult society. We live in a society that doesn't allow people to be part-time engaged in economic activity unless you are rich. If you're rich, you can go through life without work. But if you have to work to pay the bills, it's very difficult to engage part-time in economic activity. So, if you feel that you are in a situation like this also, do what you have to do for as long as necessary, but gradually you will work towards a situation where you have more room to connect, to feel connected, to stay connected. You recognize this, huh? So it's not because you're lazy. It is an expected part of your development. So do not ever feel bad about it if you struggle with your full-time job. You may have to maintain it for some time to come for practical reasons, but you will work towards a situation where you simply can have some more time and room for yourself. It's a duty that you have to yourself. All right. Thanks for the question. That always inspires me more than just telling the story that is on the schedule. Let's have a short break.